Join me as I bring you all into the Shadow Realm. What's up, everyone? It's Max Clausen, and today I'm going to bring you guys, if you hadn't noticed from the thumbnail, my Dark World deck profile. So this is more so a very for fun, competitive, not so much first turn kill, but it can be that kind of deck. This deck focuses solely on draw and adding to your hand and discarding cards, not for cost, but there are some cards that we can do for that. So it does lose heavily to Droll and Lockbird, but there are ways we can counteract that. So as always, I'm gonna show you my main, extra, and side deck. Already looking spicy because you see Denko just sitting there looking intimidating, but without further ado, let's jump into the video. Starting off, for the Dark Worlds, we do play triple Rainbow, Dragon over Lord of Dark, over King of Dark World. This is the newest addition from the structure deck, and if you didn't know what his effect is, it's really ridiculous. So, for one, all Dark Worlds share the effect that if they're discarded, they get a certain effect that benefits you. However, if they are also discarded by the opponent's card effect, they get an additional effect, which sometimes doesn't often come up, but you can make it happen. So, also, I like the glare on that. Like, oh my god, he looks even more intimidating. So, Rainbow over King. When he's discarded, you can add a level 5 or higher Dark World monster from your deck to your hand. And if he's discarded by your opponent's card effect, not only do you add to your hand, but first you can special summon a level 4 or lower Fiend monster from your deck to either side of the field, and then you add a card to your hand. So he'll be a very great combo with Ceruli that we play in the deck, of course. Yes, and that's just really amazing. Also, he does have Grapha's effect where you can send a level 7 or lower Dark World monster back to your hand and then summon him straight from the deck. Keep in mind, that is not an activation, that is a summoning condition. So, even if your opponent has something like Shadow Imprisoning Mirror on the field, it doesn't negate that because, as said, that is a summon condition. And all our Dark World effects also are not once per turn. So, have with that information what you will. Next, we have Grapha, the Dragon Lord of Dark World, in his original form, but he evolves later. Grapha is one of the OG Dark Worlds in this game. I will get the higher or second higher rarities in due time. But for Grapha, when he's discarded, you can target a face-up card on your opponent's side of the field, destroy it. And if he's discarded by your opponent's card effect, not only do you destroy a card, but you can also... Does he rip a card from their hand? Well, first, you can target a card on your opponent's field and destroy that target. Incorrection. And if he's discarded by opponent's card effect, you can look at a random card in your opponent's hand. If it's a monster, summon it. So he'll get you an extra body on the field. And he also shares the effect that if there's a Dark World monster on your field, you can bounce it back to summon him back from the graveyard. So these two can loop each other. Well, over Rainbow cannot send Grapha back to the hand because it specifically states level 7 or lower Dark Worlds. But just having these two in the grave, you're set to just keep looping and looping them for continuous use of the effects. Next up, we're going to play two very good cards. We play Gold, the Woo Lord of Dark World, and Silver, the Warlord of Dark World. Gold has to go first because, Silver is second place. For Gold and Silver both share the effect that if they're discarded, they can just summon themselves back to the field. That's one. But their own special effect is that Gold, if he's discarded by an opponent's card effect, you can target up to 2 cards on the opponent's side of the field, destroy them and summon them, and then destroy those cards. It's summon. Target, up to 2 cards, summon this card, and then destroy those cards. So that's kind of a delayed well, not really a delayed effect, so they can negate it with something like Stardust or whatever, but that's his effect. Silver, on the other hand, is the one that's really important for the deck. If this card is discarded by your opponent's card effect, You summon him back to the field, and then your opponent immediately has to choose two cards of their choice to put back to the bottom of the deck. So the hand loop with this card is just summon him twice and then loop your opponent for the last card in their hand. And basically they start with nothing. Next up, I play the 3 Snow. Yes, I know she's common, but again, this is all from the structure deck, by the way. So leave me and my rarities alone. Like, Jesus, guys, these deck profiles take time and money. So Snow. Her effect is that if she's discarded, you can add a Dark World card from your deck to your hand, and if she's discarded via the opponent's card effect, that effect is always just so annoying. You can add a target a monster to your opponent's graveyard, then add a Dark World card to your hand, and then summon that target, if any, to defense position. So she'll also help you get a body on the field as well as searching. Next up, we play the very important card, which is Triple Genta, Gateman of Dark World, and he is the monster that is on the card art of Gates Dark World. So first effect, he is a terraforming, which is not once per turn, as all Dark Worlds are. He can discard himself, add Gates of Dark World to your hand, and if this card is banished, you can special summon it back to your field. So if you banish it with Allure of Darkness or the Gates effect, just summon him back to the field. But that is a once per turn effect, sadly. He's the only outcast. Otherwise, this deck would be insanely busted. The last Dark World we do run is Ceruli, which facilitates the silver hand loop and any other kind of loop that we can make in this deck. If this card is discarded, you can summon it to your opponent's field, and then when summoned, when he's summoned by a Dark World effect, even his own, he forces the opponent to discard one card. So if he summons himself to your opponent's side of the field, you are now technically Cerule's opponent, so you discard a card. Being any of these, most importantly silver, you get their beneficial effects, which is really ridiculous in this deck. And when you do that, your opponent, if they can't stop it, then they just lose their entire hand. That's it for the Dark World monsters. Now up for the other monsters that help this deck. I do play a small Danger Engine. I play 2 Danger Bigfoot, 2 Danger Nessie, the 1 Mothman, the 1 Chupacabra, and the 1 Jackalope. Now, all the dangers, they're reveal to summon and then draw effect is not once per turn. However, the other ones are, I believe. Danger Bigfoot. When it's discarded, if you reveal it in your hand, your opponent randomly chooses a card. If it's not the card that you reveal, you summon it and then you draw a card. If it is discarded, be a cost or just a card effect in general, you can target a face-up monster on your opponent's field. Is it just a monster, right? Yeah, face-up card on your opponent's field. This deck is crazy every time I reread it. Target a face-up card, destroy it. And that is once per turn, I am sure of. Next up, we have Nessie. They all share the same effect. Reveal, if they don't get picked, summon it and draw. Nessie's special effect, however, is that when it's sent to the graveyard, or discarded to the graveyard, you can add a danger card to your hand. So if he discarded himself, you still get a little benefit, so you can get any of these. Mothman, if his special effect is that if he's discarded, both players draw one and then discard. So he's essentially your, Dark World dealings of the deck. So he'll help out tremendously. The most important card in this lineup is actually Chupacabra, because if you hadn't noticed, he's a fiend. His effect is that if it's discarded, you can summon a danger monster back from your graveyard. And Jackalope's effect is that it can summon a danger monster from your deck. Or do I have that backwards? Let's see. Yeah, you can summon a danger from your deck with Jackalope, and Chupacabra summons one from your graveyard. So their effects are kind of similar in a sense. So this is why I did run Tsuchinoko, but its effect would only summon itself, and it's not too great by itself. So Jackalope's a lot better in that case. Next up, I play the crazy lineup of 2 Lava Golem and 2 Raiden. I play these guys just because I hate the opponent having monsters that I can't really deal with on my first turn, or just something I can't target, destroy, whatever. So these guys are here for that reason. Lava Golem, you all should know what he does. But if you don't, you can tribute 2 monsters on your opponent's side of the field, a special summon this card to their field. You cannot summon the turn, normal summon, correction, the turn you do this. And on the standby phase, if he's face up, the controller takes 1,000 damage. So, if your opponent happens to just sit on a Rise Heart or Shangri-La and pass or whatever, you just go like, alright, here you go. So anyway, and Raiden is kind of the same deal. Most people would play Santa Claus, but Santa Claus is a light target, so you can't really do anything. And he's not really a fiend, not that I know of. I think he's not. So also, yeah, another reason, because these two are fiends, so you can use them with the field spell effect. Next up, we do play the honorary Dark World monster, being Zephyros the Elite. His effect, if you don't know, if you can target a face, you can bounce a face-up card on your field, summon them from the grave, but as you do, you take 400 points of damage. Was it? Yeah, 400 points of damage. No, a little minor, but to hand loop and do all your plays with this deck, you don't mind taking that little bit of damage. So, and he is basically your 4th copy of the Ace of Dark World. Next up, I do play the extra, not honorary Dark World in Salamander Catalyzer. This card is really ridiculous. So, you can reveal him and 1 fiend in your hand. You can special summon one of those cards reveal, which is always going to be Salamander, because you want your Dark World's effects. And then, if the fiend monster is destroyed, well, when a monster destroyed by battle involving your fiend happens while this card is in your grave, you can add him back to your hand. Just keep using this effect. If you go first and your plays go uninterrupted, you won't really use that effect, but it's good to keep in mind. So always double check your graveyard and stuff with this deck, guys, because you never know, you have something you can do. And next up, to combat the Droll case in this everybody plays, we do play the Cyframe Gear package. I don't really believe I should explain what this does, guys. Just, they try and droll you while you have no monster on your field. Just, Gamma, summon, so shut up, and let me continue my duel. Just using this on the Droll and Lockbird just really, really feels so satisfying, guys. I don't kid when I say Droll just fucks up this whole deck. Excuse the language, but it does. So having this really can help you. If you don't draw it, that's just the game. You didn't draw the right card, and they just happen to have the Droll. So it happens. The one tech card I do play, and some people did play this card when the Jack War deck first was revealed and started to come out, but nobody does play it that I've seen in profiles, and that card is Neko. Wow, nice entrance. Neko Mane King. This card is just adorable and very funny when you pull it off, and most times I do find myself digging just to get this card. You don't have to dig for the card, but it does help just like win you the duel. So his effect is very situational, but obviously this is Dark World, so we can do with situational stuff sometimes. If simple and state, if he's discarded from your hand by your opponent's card, their turn immediately ends. They can't go into battle phase, they can't set up any cards. Just end your turn, bruh. It's my go. And you do this with one of your extra deck monsters, which we will get into. But that is it for the monster count. Very high monster density. Next up, the card that is the soul of this deck, the Gates of Dark World. This card also is not once per turn. What it does, first and foremost, is that all your fiends on the field gain an additional 300 attack points, 300 attack and defense. And once per turn, soft once per turn, you can banish a dark fiend monster from your graveyard, discard a card, and then draw 1. So that helps start up things with your Snow, with your Rainbow, with your Grapha, with your Genta. Just really just insane. Genta already just helps get this field card live, so you have to max out of 3. If you don't play this card, then you're just an idiot and not playing the deck correctly. Like some people who don't want to play their field spells for their deck. Crystal Beast. Next, we have 3 Allure Darkness. The majority of this deck is dark. You only have like 3 other attributes that aren't dark related, but you use this card when you can. And I don't believe, does it send your entire hand? Yeah, it sends. But this card is just still crazy. Draw power, Allure Darkness. Nothing more needs to be said about it. Next, I do play, and you're gonna think it's odd. I do follow the idea of playing 2 trade-ins. So for the simple fact is that a lot of times I do find myself drawing a lot and having a lot of cards in my hand. Most of the time being rainbow again or Grapha somehow, or even the lava golem that I can't use on my first turn. Just trade in, send it away, or even Bigfoot, who is also a level 8. So just trade in, get 2 extra cards. You won't get Rainbow's effect, or you won't get any of your Dark World effects for paying costs of cards that discard, but, activate this first turn if you want to fix up your hand just a bit. Just another 2 copies of Alorix, in a sense. Now for the powerful one-ofs, I do have the 1 powerful triple tax thrust, correction. I will get a second one eventually, so that's, that. If your opponent activates a card effect during your main phase, I believe, or just your turn in general, you can add a normal spell or trap card to your hand. You can only do that if they control a monster. If they don't, you set the card and it can't be activated that same turn, but just good setup for following. The other card that does go with it is Triple Tactics Talents. Get 3 effects, draw 2, take control of a monster, or shuffle a card back to your opponent's deck. So you happen to draw this after you've made them use Ceruli, put that last card back in your deck, fam. It's just ridiculous. Next, we do have the Dark World Archives. This card is really good. You can activate the first effect, which you don't have to have a Dark World on the field, I believe. Comment down in the comment section if I'm wrong about that. I probably am, probably not. But it's a fact. You discard a Dark World monster. Dark World is a fiend. Discard a Dark World monster. All of the Dark Worlds you control gain attack equal to that monster's level times 100. But we don't care about that effect. The other effect is that if a Dark World monster is discarded by a card effect, especially this one, you discard 1, then draw 2. Discard a fiend and then draw 2. So, helps even more draw power. This deck is all just draw. I wasn't kidding, guys. Next up, we do play our fusion card in Dark World Accession. You banish the materials from your field and or graveyard to summon a fiend monster. And during your main phase, you can add this card back to your hand, then discard a card. So it also helps to trigger off your Dark World cards. Just help fodder all around. And the God card that often wins you the game is 1 card Destruction. That's it for the main deck. That is actually, I believe, to be 45 cards, guys. Yeah. The first deck profile on this channel with 45 main deck. Now, into the extra deck, we have the man himself. Grapha has evolved. Grapha, Dragon Overlord of Dark World. This thing has quite a few effects, but the one most important one to know is that if your opponent activates any card, be it that you can chain to it, you can activate his effect to rewrite that card's effect to where it says your opponent discards a card. And yes, the spell means you are the opponent. So discard Necromane King. Your turn is now over. Your starter card that you tried to use, nope, not anymore. Or the Imperm you tried to use, unless you got a second one, then, kudos to you. Next, and it does have another ability, though. I have to read that one off for you guys because I don't often use it. Also, you can only activate his rewrite effect while you have cards in your hand. If this fusion summon card in its opponent's control leaves the field because of your opponent's card, via battle or effects, you can special summon one of your Graph or Dragon Lord of Darkworld that's banished or in your graveyard. Then each player with a hand discards one. So I believe that last effect can activate even if your opponent doesn't have a hand and you do. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. That's what the comment section's for. Next up for the XCs, we have the one terribly tired Baguska. If your hand's not the greatest, but you do manage to have 2 level 4s on the field, just summon him. Not many decks can deal with it. We have the one Dugaris. You're always going to use his first effect if you happen to go first. And that's to draw 2, then you discard a card for effect, not cost. However, his other effect is that, and then if you do use the draw effect, you can't draw in your next draw phase, but who cares? His other effect is that you can detach 2, double an opponent's double your monster's attack points, but next turn you don't have a battle phase. And his third effect, what was it do again? You can skip the battle phase of your next, skip the battle phase, and and the other effect, skip your main phase 1, also summon a monster from your graveyard. So recursion, battle, increased battle damage, but y'all often going to use the draw too. And the last rank for it is my boy Evil Swarm Extinction Knight. If you guys don't have this card yet, I'm sorry to hear that, but it has likely at this point jumped up in price, I believe. And another point advantage is that all 3 of these are fiends, so more fodder for your field spell. But Evil Swarm, if your opponent has more cards than you, just activate his effect, not once per chain, just blow up everything. The original Zeus. Next, we do have the Coach King Giant Trainer. You don't use him for attacking half the time, you just use him to draw 3. If they're all monsters, burn your opponent for 2,400. And that's pretty great to go into time with. I am trying out the one zombie vampire just to excavate the deck and summon a monster from either field and to just know what my opponent's playing. I was at one time running Hope Harbinger, but summoning him sometimes isn't always too great. So, you can choose who you want to run for your last rank 8 slot, or if you just want to play Coach King, that's fine as well. But I do want to try out 2 rank 8s because, I often have 2 of them on the field. Now, for our links, we do have the one Muttcracker. She helps you with your plays, but however, when you use her effect, you can only special summon fiends for the rest of the turn. So her effect is you can target a fiend in your graveyard, summon it, and then you discard a card for effect, not cost. Next, we do have the Security Dragon, which helps, again, with the Ceruli looping phase. We have the Nightmare Cerberus, the one Akashic Magician, the one Nightmare Phoenix, the Appaloosa Boa the Goddess, the Nightmare Griffin, and the one Saryuja Skull Dread. This is pretty standard lineup of Link monsters for a Dark World deck, so yeah. And now for the spicy, cute side deck. For back row heavy decks, if you saw it and you don't really normal summon a lot like that in this deck anyway, we do play the 3 Denko Sekka. Just summon it. If you ain't got a judgment, you're screwed. I can continue my plays unimpeded. Next, I wanted to try this because I had 3 extra slots. I have main deck side the 3 Contact C. If your opponent summons a monster, just summon this to their field. They cannot go into their extra deck unless they use this card as material. Of course, you don't side this against a Link heavy deck or Xyz deck that does have rank 6s. But this is just mainly to kill Kashtira, kill Purely. What else? It can't really kill anything else that does Link summon because, most Link monsters are generic. And because we do have the Thrust, I side deck the 2 Dark Ruler, the 1 Feather Duster, and the 1 Regeki. All of these are searchable because, Thrust. And next for our trap cards that are searchable as well, the 3 Evenly Match, the 1 Eradicator Epidemic. Just activate this turn 1 against something like Purelees or Runics or Sky Strikers if they still play that, or even Labyrinth or Trap Tricks. Just call the appropriate spell or trap card. Their turns just often end. And I am trying out the one deck devastation virus just to destroy those hand traps and any other low attack point starters in the opponent's deck should they go second. But that is it for my Dark World deck profile, guys. Let me know what you guys think about it. Leave it in the comments below what you would add, what you would change, how you enjoy the deck overall. You know, I like all feedback and comments. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to follow me for more content. I am going to start trying to post much more regularly. These profiles do take time to make and think up, guys, so please bear with me if my updates are often in between each other. But all that said, I hope you guys enjoy, and I will catch you in my next profile or test hands. Leave it in the comments if you want to test hand of this deck. Alright, see you later, guys.